He laughed at anyone who believed in God. He proudly said, "Money is my God, I don't need anyone else." But one unexpected night, everything he had spent his entire life building began to fall apart. What happened next shocked the entire city. Stay until the end, because this story may change the way you see faith forever. Daniel Morgan was one of the richest businessmen in America. People called him the king of success. He owned luxury hotels, private jets, expensive mansions, and companies worth billions of dollars. Every morning, television channels showed his interviews. Every magazine wanted his picture on the front page. To the world, Daniel Morgan was the perfect example of success. But there was one thing almost everyone knew about him. He hated talking about God. Whenever someone thanked God for their success, Daniel would smile sarcastically and say, "Don't thank God, thank hard work." People around him laughed. Some even applauded. His confidence grew stronger every day. One afternoon, Daniel was invited to speak at a business conference attended by thousands of young entrepreneurs. The audience waited eagerly for his success secrets. Daniel walked confidently onto the stage. The hall erupted in applause. He smiled proudly before saying, "People always ask me the secret behind my success." He paused. Then he laughed. "Some people say God blessed me." The audience became silent. Daniel slowly shook his head. "Let me tell you the truth. God didn't build my companies. God didn't earn my money. I built this empire with my own hands." The audience exploded into applause. Daniel raised his hands proudly. Then he spoke the words that no one would ever forget. "Money is the only power that matters. Faith doesn't make people rich. Business does." Many people clapped, but in the back row, an elderly man quietly lowered his head. He whispered, "Lord, please have mercy on him." Daniel noticed the old man. With a mocking smile he said, "Grandpa, prayer won't change the world." The audience laughed even louder. The old man simply smiled gently. He replied, "Son, one day you'll discover there are battles money can never win." Daniel laughed again. He turned away without another word. As he left the stage, he believed he had won the argument. He had no idea that within a few days, his life would begin changing in ways he could never have imagined. The morning after the conference, Daniel woke up feeling more confident than ever. His speech had gone viral. Millions of people were sharing short clips of him saying, "Money is the only power that matters." Business magazines called him a genius. Television hosts praised his confidence. His social media followers increased by hundreds of thousands overnight. Daniel sat in his luxurious office on the top floor of his headquarters, smiling as he watched the interviews. He whispered to himself, "I told the truth, and the world loves the truth." Just then, his assistant rushed into the office. Her face was pale. "Mr. Morgan," she struggled to breathe, "our biggest investor has suddenly withdrawn from the project." Daniel remained calm. "That's all," he smiled. "We have hundreds of investors." His assistant nodded nervously. "Sir, there's more. Our second investor pulled out too." Daniel's smile slowly disappeared. Within the next hour, another phone call arrived. Then another. And another. One after another. Investors began canceling billion-dollar contracts. Daniel couldn't understand what was happening. By the afternoon, the company's stock had fallen dramatically. Financial news channels flashed red headlines across every screen. Morgan Group faces its worst financial crisis. Employees whispered in fear. Reporters gathered outside the building. Daniel stood silently in front of the giant glass window overlooking the city he once believed he controlled. His phone rang again. It was his lawyer. "Daniel, we have another problem." "What now?" Daniel asked impatiently. "The government has frozen one of the company's major projects until an investigation is completed." Daniel slammed the phone onto his desk. "This is impossible." He immediately called powerful friends, politicians, lawyers, business partners, people who had once promised they would always stand beside him. But this time, no one answered. Some ignored his calls. Others simply said, "We're sorry, we can't get involved." For the first time in years, Daniel felt completely alone. That evening, he returned to his enormous mansion. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt strangely silent. He walked past expensive paintings, luxury furniture, golden decorations, yet none of them brought him peace. He poured himself a cup of coffee and stared into the darkness outside. Suddenly, lightning flashed across the sky. A loud clap of thunder shook the windows. The lights went out. The entire mansion became silent. Daniel stood frozen in the darkness. For reasons he couldn't explain, the words of the old man at the conference suddenly echoed in his mind. One day you'll discover there are battles money can never win. Daniel shook his head angrily. No, I don't need God, I'll fix everything myself. But deep inside, for the very first time, he wasn't sure if he still believed his own words. The next morning, Daniel arrived at his company before sunrise. For the first time in many years, there were no smiling employees waiting to welcome him. No reporters asking for interviews. No business partners waiting in the conference room. The building that once felt alive now felt cold and empty. As he walked through the hallway, he noticed people whispering. Some employees looked down, others quietly walked away. No one wanted to make eye contact with him. Daniel entered the boardroom. His directors were already waiting. The atmosphere was heavy. No one smiled. Finally, the chief financial officer broke the silence. Mr. Morgan, we've calculated everything. He slid a thick file across the table. If things continue like this, the company could collapse within 3 months. Daniel stared at the papers. He couldn't believe what he was reading. Billions of dollars gone. Projects cancelled. Banks demanding immediate payments. Lawsuits piling up. For the first time in his life, he felt something he had never allowed himself to feel. Fear. Real fear. Suddenly his phone vibrated. It was his younger sister, Rachel. Daniel answered immediately. Daniel. Her voice was shaking. Dad has been taken to the hospital. Daniel's heart stopped. What happened? The doctors think he had a heart attack. Without another word, Daniel rushed out of the building. For years, he had always been too busy for his father. Every phone call ended with, "I'm in a meeting. I'll visit next week. I'm busy." Now, as he drove toward the hospital, one painful thought kept repeating in his mind. What if next week never comes? He arrived at the emergency room. Machines beeped quietly. Doctors and nurses hurried through the corridors. Daniel saw his father lying in a hospital bed, weak and exhausted. The man who had once taught him to ride a bicycle now struggled just to breathe. Daniel gently held his father's hand. His father slowly opened his eyes. A faint smile appeared on his face. "You're here." Daniel could barely speak. "I'm sorry, Dad." His father squeezed his hand gently. Then, with a weak voice, he said, "Son, I've never prayed for your money." Daniel looked at him in silence. His father continued, "I've prayed that one day, you would find peace." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. His father looked toward the window. "The richest man isn't the one with the biggest bank account." He paused to catch his breath. "It's the one whose heart belongs to God." Those words pierced Daniel's heart. For the first time, he had no answer, no argument, no pride, only silence. That evening, as Daniel walked out of the hospital, he noticed an old man sitting alone on a bench outside. The man slowly looked up. Daniel froze. It was the same elderly man from the business conference. The old man smiled gently, as if he had been expecting him all along. Daniel stood frozen. The elderly man slowly smiled. "Hello again, son." For a few moments, neither of them spoke. Only the cool evening wind moved gently through the trees outside the hospital. Daniel looked down in shame. Just days earlier, he had mocked this old man in front of thousands of people. Now, life had brought them face to face again. The old man quietly stood up. "I heard about your father," he said softly. "I'm praying for him." Daniel lowered his eyes. "After everything I said to you, you still pray for me?" The old man smiled. "My son, Jesus taught us to pray even for those who hurt us." Those simple words hit Daniel harder than any business loss ever had. For the first time in years, his eyes filled with tears. "I don't understand," Daniel whispered. "I insulted you. I laughed at your faith. I told the whole world I didn't need God. Why are you still being kind to me?" The old man placed a gentle hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Because kindness isn't earned, it's given. And God's love doesn't disappear just because we reject Him." Daniel could no longer hold back his emotions. Tears rolled down his face. "My whole life, I believed money could solve everything. But now, my company is falling apart. My father is lying in a hospital bed. My friends have disappeared, and for the first time, I'm afraid." The old man nodded gently. "Fear has a way of reminding us that we were never meant to carry life alone." He pointed toward the small church across the street. Its lights glowed softly in the darkness. "Would you come with me?" Daniel looked at the church. Just a week ago, he would have laughed. He would have refused without thinking. But tonight, Something inside him had changed. Without saying a word, he slowly nodded. Together, they walked across the quiet street. The church doors were open. Soft worship music filled the room. There were no television cameras. No reporters. No businessmen. Only ordinary people praying quietly. Daniel sat alone in the last row. For several minutes, he said nothing. He simply watched. An elderly couple held hands while praying. A young mother quietly thanked God with tears in her eyes. A little boy folded his tiny hands and whispered, "Jesus, please help my daddy get better." Daniel felt something break inside him. He suddenly realized, these people had almost nothing compared to him. No private jets, no billion-dollar companies, no luxury cars, yet, they had something he had spent his entire life searching for. Peace. Real peace. His hands began to tremble. For the first time in his life, Daniel slowly bowed his head. His voice was almost silent. "God, I don't even know how to pray. I've spent years laughing at people who believed in you. I was proud. I thought I was stronger than everyone." He stopped speaking. Tears fell onto the wooden floor. Then he whispered the words he never imagined he would say. "If you're still willing to listen, please don't give up on me." The church remained silent. No thunder. No dramatic miracle. Only a quiet peace. A peace Daniel had never felt before. As he lifted his head, the old man smiled warmly and said, "Welcome home, my son." At that moment, Daniel understood something money had never been able to teach him. The greatest wealth in life is not found in a bank account, but in a heart that has found peace with God. The next morning, Daniel woke up before sunrise. For the first time in many years, he didn't reach for his phone. He didn't check the stock market. He didn't open his business reports. Instead, he quietly sat beside the hospital bed where his father was resting. His father slowly opened his eyes. A gentle smile appeared on his face. "You look different today," he whispered. Daniel smiled through tears. "I am different, Dad. I spent my whole life building an empire. But I forgot to build my soul." His father gently squeezed his hand. "No one is too far from God's mercy, my son." Those words stayed with Daniel. Over the following weeks, Daniel's life didn't suddenly become perfect. The court cases didn't disappear overnight. His business challenges didn't magically end. But something far greater had changed. His heart. Every morning, before making a business decision, Daniel prayed. Every Sunday, he quietly sat in the last row of the same little church. He no longer wanted attention. He only wanted peace. Months later, the city held another business conference. Thousands of people filled the auditorium. Just like before, Daniel Morgan walked onto the stage. But this time, there was no pride in his eyes. There was humility. The audience applauded loudly. Daniel waited until the room became completely silent. Then he smiled gently and said, "The last time I stood on a stage like this, I told you that money was the only power that mattered." He paused. "I was wrong." The audience became silent. You can become a millionaire. You can own companies. You can buy houses, cars, and private jets. But none of those things can buy peace. Daniel looked across the crowd. Then he said the words that touched thousands of hearts. "The greatest investment I ever made wasn't in business. It was when I humbled myself before God." Many people in the audience wiped tears from their eyes. Near the back of the hall, the same elderly man smiled quietly. Their eyes met. Daniel placed his hand over his heart. It was his silent way of saying, "Thank you." That day, Daniel donated a large part of his wealth to help struggling families, support children in need, and serve his local community. Not because he wanted applause, but because his heart had finally changed. And every time someone asked him, "What is the secret of your success?" he smiled and answered, "Success gave me money, but God gave me peace." If this story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe to the Faith Journey, and comment below. True wealth is found in God. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. You never know whose heart God may touch through a single message. May the Lord bless you, guide you, and fill your heart with His perfect peace. In Jesus' name, Amen.